Hey, I'm calling to order the City of Menasha Board of Public Works. Clerk Aliazi, could you please take roll?
Alderman Sevenik.
Here.
Alderman Langdon.
Here.
Alderman Kruger.
Here.
Alderman Tom Grotti.
Here.
Alderman Ted Grotti.
Here.
Alderman Rapella.
Here.
Alderman Nichols.
Here.
Alderman Taylor. I didn't hear anything. He's
Mark Mendon
absent.
is absent. Okay, first thing on the agenda is the minutes to approve from September 17th, 2018. Do I have a motion? Alderman Langdon.
Thank you. I will make the motion to approve the minutes from the Board of Public Works from September 17th, 2018.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Alderman Ted Grotti. Is there any discussion? See none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to discussion and action items, the first thing on the agenda is to pursue a one-phase design for the new Public Works facility. Director Radomski.
So I'm going to go through a PowerPoint here that I went through the other day as well during the CIP workshop, but feel that it's important to go through it again so that the public has a chance to view it, via the tape and all that. So going through and doing the Public Works facility in the existing facility was constructed in 1963. The current maintenance shop is 2 bays with a total of 4,125 square feet, which includes the office and storage areas. This is an extremely small maintenance facility, and if any of you have been out there, it gets very, very jammed very quickly, especially when we get some of our larger equipment out there. The equipment size has increased substantially since 1963. We have a sign shop that is currently located in a separate cold storage facility. The cold storage facility currently floods a lot due to grade issues and also has some climate control issues out there. We try and keep it pretty good, but every once in a while it does have climate control issues out there. Several years ago, we did do some studies on the air quality. The facility does currently meet the minimum state standards. However, it does not meet ASHRAE standards, which is kind of like the top standard that most people are designing for these days. And then the public drop-off area, as many of you guys know, there's a lot of conflict points between our vehicles and the public. So one thing that we were looking at is to try and separate the public and the employees to try and make that traffic flow smoother. So here's some pictures of the existing facility. As you can see, the maintenance shop gets pretty packed, and we occasionally have to store vehicles outside to wait for maintenance. We currently have 3 mechanics and only 2 maintenance bays. This creates a lot of cross traffic and just some major safety and efficiency concerns. History of the Public Works Facility project. The Bray report was a report done in 2002 for the city. It did recommend that the Public Works facility be one of the first 3 facilities that are replaced for a cost of $5.8 million. Obviously, this cost has gone up because we are currently in 2018, not 2002. And also, there have been numerous buildings built by the city. We've moved City Hall, we've had a new health department, a new library that were not on the order, not in the priority order before the Public Works facility. However, those got built first. The site was looked at in the mid-2000s. However, budget constraints due to the steam plant project did cancel the project at that time. Site investigation does show that the existing site does sit on an old landfill with some contamination. However, the DNR does not believe that this will be a major hurdle to pass. We've already had discussions with them, and we do have a way forward with that. The initial design and half of the construction cost for the maintenance facility, or maintenance and office facility, was included with the adoption of the 2018 budget. The council did approve a team of Grease Architecture and Myron Construction to design phase 1 of the Public Works facility on March 19th, 2018. Staff subsequently went to visit Ashwaubenon, Calumet County, Rail, and Little Chute facilities to get some design ideas from other area municipalities and businesses. The initial design did focus on the maintenance facility, office space, and the sign and wood shops. However, after the initial review, the existing site did not lend itself to constructing the maintenance facility while maintaining the existing building in operation. We did get notified, Sam Schrader did find a loan from the USDA that does give us the possibility of a 40-year loan term instead of 20 years and a lower interest rate than the state fund, which does make the proposal to have a one-phase design possible, working out our finances. We have worked with Grease and Myron, and we do have preliminary cost estimates for a one and two phase facility. The one phase facility is about $10.7 million, whereas a two phase facility would be about $4 million now and about $7 or $8 million later, depending on the amount of time that would be spent between the two projects. The interest of the construction cost would increase substantially, about 5% per year. The current design would have a maintenance shop that consists of 3 drive-through bays capable of servicing 6 large vehicles. It'll have 11,500 square feet, a far cry from our existing 4,000 square foot facility. The vehicle storage bay would be able to accommodate all of our existing equipment, as well as a few extra pieces that may be added in the future. We do want to design this for a building that lasts for 50, 75 years, not something that we're going to come back 10, 15 years from now and go, why didn't we build this bigger? Why didn't we build this better? We don't want to run into that situation. We will provide adequate parts, tire, and equipment storage for the maintenance shop, including 2 mezzanine levels with a crane that goes over the top so that we can store some of our park equipment on the mezzanine levels. The sign shop will be moved to the climate-controlled public works facility, so that will make it so it's climate-controlled, and also so that the people working in the sign shop are in close proximity to other staff members. We will have a separate fabrication area for welding. As you know, our mechanics do a fair amount of welding, and the leaf machine would not be possible without the welding knowledge of our mechanics, so we feel that this is a very important part of the new design. We also have a public drop-off area that is separate from the employee work area. So the next slide kind of shows the site layout. Up near the top of the screen on the north end of the site, you notice that that is where the public drop-off area will be in the office. Most of the staff and all of the equipment will be using the southern portion of the site. We will still have area for some mulch, some recyclables, and stuff like that for public to drop stuff off. And this does provide drive-through aisles for both the maintenance bays as well as the vehicle storage, which makes for safer driving movements because you don't have to worry about people coming in and out of the same drive aisle. The building layout, so if you look, the left side of your screen is the furthest north section of the building. That's got the office area with like Adam, Thad, and Karen's office, and that will be where the public will see. Next to that, you have the maintenance facility and the remaining portion of the staff area with the break rooms, the locker rooms, and then finally on the furthest south portion is the vehicle storage bay, and then a wash bay attached to that. We did feel that a wash bay is important. However, if cost does become a huge issue, that is something that we may go out as an optional bid at this time. So this is a 3D schematic of the building design, just for your information. So the design of the Calumet County facility, which was constructed, I think it was either last year or 2 years ago, was kind of the design that we modeled our design off of. As you can see, the maintenance facility has a significant amount of not only added room, but also added light. Our facility is very, very dark, and by adding some light tubes in the ceiling and as well as white paint, it increased the light levels so that you didn't even have to have lights on to be able to work in the majority of the building. The exterior is a precast concrete structure with probably a brick facade in the office area, very similar to what Calumet County would be. So now I'm going to turn it over to John for the financial aspects.
On the slide here, in the CIP budget that you had gotten a copy of a couple weeks ago, was that we were proposing on going out for a USDA loan for just a one loan, not two, assuming this is all done as one phase. We have the option to go out as long as Josh has said, out to a 40-year maturity. However, we would probably be best to probably do it in a shorter length of time, because then that would mean the interest would also be less at that time. When we presented this to you back at the CIP budget workshop back in mid-September, the interest rate at that time for third quarter and all the way since January 1st of this year was at 3.875%. However, as we suspected, that rate has gone up to 4% now going into the fourth quarter. And the rates will continue to go upward as the Federal Reserve continues to raise interest rates over the next number of quarters. So we can anticipate that we want to try to get the rate locked in as quick as possible and to get the loan approval through the USDA committee as we need to. The route to go for the borrowing here is that we would not be going out as a general obligation borrowing either through a local bank on the market or down to the state trust fund loans, because state statute only allows for general obligation debt to go out to a maximum of 20 years. So the proposal is that we will recommend to the City Council and to the Redevelopment Authority is to have the debt issued as lease revenue bonds through the RDA, through the Redevelopment Authority. So they would be actually issuing the debt and making the payments. However, the city would have a lease agreement between the city and the RDA to lease the property and to make the payments on behalf of the RDA. So the funds would come 100% from the city, be put in the city's budget every year, is included as part of our annual debt service payment. Right now, we're assuming roughly about a 31-year amortization on it to be paid off by, on my latest projections, which I have included in the packet, which I'll talk about here, is out a 30-year debt, so it would be paid off by 2049. We could go out to an extra 10 years beyond that, but right now, we're actually looking at 2049 instead of 2050, even though we know we could go out as long as 2059. The structure, we did have a little conversation with the USDA loan office in Fond du Lac last week, that they did take a look at our debt amortization schedule that we were proposing. They understood that we were looking for smaller principal payments in the years of 2020, which would be the first year there would be a debt a principal payment, through 2027. And then beyond that, from 2028 through 2049, they would be a larger principal payments between $300,000 and $700,000 of annual principal payments plus interest. The reason for the smaller payments in those first few years through 2027 is because we still have some existing steam plant debt, which we've talked about a number of times over the last couple months together. That will be paid off. Most of it will be paid off by 2028, with the remainder of it being paid off in 2030. So therefore, we're trying to structure our annual debt service payment so that we can make everything fit into a relatively level principal and interest payment schedule that the city can afford realistically to be able to go ahead with this project. If you want to go on the next slide. I did add two more.
Oh.
You didn't know about it yet. In the last couple of weeks, I've been working with the mayor and trying to find a way to make room for the Public Works Garage and also for the 5-year CIP plan for all of the projects, for all the different departments going forward in time. What you see in the left-hand column, there's a graphic on the second page, which we'll get to. But on the number side of it, when I first got here a year ago, the principal and interest payment schedule for the city's portion, which does not include the sewer or the stormwater revenue bonds or any TIF district debt. This is just the city portion that the city is responsible for coming up with the funding to make debt service payments. 2019, 2020, we would have been at almost $3.5 million with the way as it existed as of the end of 2017. It did not include the borrowing for the 2017 or 2018 years for CIP plan. It did not include, obviously, any future debt for 2019 through 2023, and obviously it didn't include any debt for the Public Works facility. So that first column of numbers there was what the existing debt service schedule was that the city had. So what you have shaded in yellow and on your packet that was handed out is that there is a way to restructure all of your existing debt and bring in the $10 million for the Public Works facility and to bring in any future borrowing as it's proposed. Not saying that you're approving anything, as you will have an annual approval process for each calendar year. But this shows you there is the potential here, and with the little tweaking with some of the existing debt issues that you have with the state trust fund loan program. 4 of them that I'm looking to just reshuffle the principal and interest payment schedules within the same maturity length that they already were set and with existing interest rates, which would not be affected. There is a way to make this as level playing field as possible, so that if we're looking at roughly up $2.9 million for 2019, and then going forward in time with very small increases, there is a way to get there to bring in the Public Works facility project, to bring in all of the borrowing for the projects from the 2019 through 2023 project, with having a very minimal effect on the tax levy and on the taxpayers going forward. There's a way to do this. I just have 2 little caveats with that. First off, the 10-year CIP borrowing that we had approved, that you had approved a month ago, where we did it for a 10-year issue for the $3,890,000. To make room for all of this and all the projects going forward, it probably now, in hindsight, would be much better to go and ask the state trust fund loan program to have it as 15-year debt instead of 10-year debt. So that would be one thing I would bring to the administration committee and the council at the next meeting in the next 2 weeks, to request to just switch the amortization on what we just approved for the 2017, 2018 years to go out to 15 years instead of 10. It makes this schedule work a lot better, a lot more level, and make everything to be able to accommodating going forward. And the second of all, there is one issue that you've got 2 years left on it for Lake Park Villas. It's $1.1 million. It's roughly about $600,000 a year for each the calendar years of 2019, 2020. That's a lot to absorb in those 2 years as single payments, and the debt could have gone out to 2024 since it was originally borrowed for in 2005 and then refinanced again. My proposal would be to take that debt, that one issue, and just extend that out an additional 4 years for that debt for Lake Park Villas. The thing is that you have revenue payments coming in with the agreement between the city and the RDA all the way to 2031. So the revenue stream is coming in at roughly about $350,000 a year. But the revenue stream goes to 2031, but you're asking the debt to be paid off by 2020. That doesn't make any sense to me. They should have been tied in a lot closer together, that the debt payments were matching closer to the revenue stream coming in. So that would be the second proposal I would bring to you in a couple weeks. So those 2 things. But otherwise, what you see in yellow is an affordable schedule, just in hindsight, looking what your existing debt is, what your existing projects were. And if the future projects were to hold going forward, there would be a small commitment of roughly about $50,000 or $25,000 in the debt service to go up each year. And that would be equivalent to roughly about 5 to 10 cents each year. Or I'm sorry, 2.5 cents to 5 cents on the rate for debt service. Because roughly the equivalent of $10,000 for every $10,000 generated is roughly about the equivalent of 1 cent on the tax rate. And this doesn't factor in any of the TIFs closing, which we know we have the rate that could be dropping in the next 10 years with all the additional valuation coming online. But at least this was my snapshot of trying to restructure what we have and to be able to propose and forecast in the future to try to make everything work. And then Josh, if you want to go to the last slide, that's just the graphically picture, that if you see the red bar lines, those are what the existing debt schedule was on an annual basis, the city portion of the debt that we would need to fund in the budget. And you can see the first 2 years going forward in 2019 and 2020 would be almost 3.5 million, and then it drops and goes down. And then by 2023, it gets down to about $2 million level. And then, of course, by 2028, most of the steam plant debt is all paid off. What the green bar shows is that if you add in all the borrowing for 2017, 2018 projects, which was not included in the red bar line, and then add in the next 5 years of CIP projects, and add in the Public Works Facility project for the $10 million project, you can make this as level as possible, and I left a little room in 2028 so that you can still see there's still a drop with the power plant, steam plant debt that would be going off. But the plan is trying to keep this as level as possible, as close to about $3 million as possible going forward, and that debt service program would be funded with not only the tax levy, but also special assessments being collected each year with the payment in lieu of taxes you get from the Menasha utilities from the electric plant, and then also from other, the revenues you get from the RDA. So that would be the funding sources to try to make this schedule work.
All right, Alderman Sevenick.
Oh, thank you, Chair. When we had our CIP budget meeting, there was a discussion of a bridge loan in order to be able to qualify for the USDA loan. And I still don't think I got quite an answer. What dollar amount of bridge loan, now that you've met with the USDA folks in Fond du Lac, what dollar amount are we looking at that we would have to obtain at the private sector?
Sure. We haven't met with them on the phone. We've been playing phone tag with them, but we've had a lot of emails in the last week. So we've been asking very specific questions, and they haven't been as easy to give us all the answers, but I think Josh and I can piece that together. The way this works is that the interim financing is in place until not only is the project bid out, but the way that we're kind of reading and with the emails coming in, that construction needs to be substantially completed before their loan would replace the bridge loan for it. So the way it's now, I don't know if I am 100% in agreement with the way that sounds, that you actually have a bridge loan out there, because our project is not just for 1 month or 2 months, it would be for about a year. So the questions we keep feeding into them, and we keep getting cryptic answers back, is that they made it sound to us that they would require us to have a bridge loan not only through the bid process, but all the way through almost substantially completed. And at that time, they would go ahead and then refinance it for us and then roll it into their program to be under the debt amortization schedule. So that's the way they've made it sound that their program works. I thought we were thinking more of just to get the project kicked off, but I think they're probably playing on the safe card that they want to make sure they're not going out and giving you more funds than you actually need. It's kind of similar to our CIP program we do here. You kind of do all the projects and we advance the funding out of our cash reserves and then replenish it by the time the projects are all done. And you know that you're not over borrowing for an amount that's in excess of. Because if we come in with the total construction project, maybe $500,000 less, they won't want to be giving us a loan for over and above of what the actual true costs are. So we're probably keeping in contact with them throughout the whole construction process. We give them all the costs and things as we get them done. And then at that point, when we got pretty much done, it sounds as if that's when the interim financing would kick in.
So I still didn't get a dollar amount.
Well, if we're looking for a project that's about $10 million, that would be what the interim financing would be for. And then it would be replaced by the amount through the USDA loan. Now, they will actually need to be involved in the process and be signed on board and probably provide us written documentation to guarantee to a bank for a local lender here. And I did meet with a local lender last week also and talked very briefly about this. But we didn't talk that it was be for the full amount. We talked about for an interim financing amount until we got the answers back from the USDA loan program. But they, what's my train of thought?
Well, how did they react, or what was it favorable?
It
or-
was favorable. Now, one of the credit unions I contacted, they wouldn't even be competitive in an interest rate that's even close to what the state trust fund loan program would be. Whereas one of the local banks that we do a lot of our transactions with, they were much more favorable, and they said, give us, once you have all your debt schedules and everything laid out, we'll work with you and we'll see what the picture actually is, to see what your affordability is, and then to be able to see how you can structure it, and they would be willing to work with us. So I did have a positive response from one of the financial institutions right in our community here to work with us on this.
Okay, so let's say, boy, now I got multiple questions. So let's say our local bank decides that they will support us with a bridge loan. And the USDA, when do they give approval or not? I mean, I'd hate to go out there, get this bridge loan, and then the USDA say, well, we didn't qualify. We're
Right.
gonna owe some debt to that bank.
That's the part I forgot as I was going through my whole discussion. They need to be signing on board before you even go out for the bid process. So we need to have all the documents in their hands that
For which one?
for the USDA loan.
Okay,
So
right,
they
but I
will
mean,
be signing off on this and approving the loan process. It's just you won't lock in everything with them until they actually know what the final dollar amount is. But they have to sign on board approving the engineering design study, and before we even go out to bid and approve the bids, they have to be involved, and they will sign off on this before we even can get to the next step. So we probably will have something in hand from them that says they're contingently approving us for this amount of a loan to allow us to go ahead, award the bids, start the project, get the interim financing in place, and then they will probably provide us the documentation to give to the local lender to be able, that they're going to be on the back end of this process.
I just think that's kind of backwards.
I would have thought
I
they
think
would.
it should be the other way around. That the financing should be secured first before we move forward.
And from our discussions with the USDA, it does sound like the financing for the USDA is set once we have that application approved, before we go out to bid, before we have anything like that. The USDA just wants to make sure that whatever the final construction dollar amount is the amount that they are going to eventually give us. But all of that preliminary application work would be approved 100% prior to us going out to bid.
Okay, yeah, because it kind of bothers me now a little bit more, because if we do all this work too, I'll just give you another situation. We do all this work and there's no guarantee we get the USDA loan. What's our other option then?
Right. and
Because there's certainly the bridge loan, the bank's gonna say, no, that, we're not looking at, the bridge loan is a temporary 1-2 year deal.
It'd probably
Not
be
a-
for just like a one-year note, if that, and then we could pay that off early, of course, once the USDA loan would actually kick in.
So what if the USDA Congress isn't gonna put forward any more kind of dollars?
What I'd like to get from them is something in writing, because we tried to get a timeline from them that shows us step one.
Well, we
step
should
two.
have our timeline, they
Correct.
should give us a timeline. The local bank should have a timeline. I mean, this all has to come together.
Right, it needs to be coordinated, and their whole review process takes 3 to 4 months. So the way Josh and I envision this is that if in the month of October, we would provide the documentation, the loan application materials to them, and then sometime probably maybe November, December, early December, they would actually be looking at the final designs, and things before any of the bid documents and things are even getting prepared, so that they are signing on board right as we go step by step by step, so that they're on board, they see the project, they've reviewed at the whole facility, the whole structure, the location, and then they also mentioned to us they would be very flexible on the loan repayment schedule on the actual USDA loan. So they said her big thing to us in the email was affordability. We'll see what's your affordability that you can fit this in your existing debt amortization schedule. And that's why when I sent the schedule to her, just to see what her input was on that, she said, no, we would be very flexible. We want to see your affordability. And so that's kind of what I had done here and what I presented to you tonight, to show you and then to show them we can make this all fit and make this all work. But the thing is, we would like a definitive timetable of, it is three parties. You've got the local lender, you've got them involved, and maybe we even do this as a state trust fund loan for 1 year and go that route even.
And actually,
So-
since we had our CIP budget meeting, the prime rate you mentioned did go up already. So now we're looking at additional,
The
Cost.
USDA loan, the state trust fund loan did not change.
and that was
But
where
the
I was going.
USDA
I was gonna ask you, did the state trust fund follow
No.
also? So I mean, there is a possibility before we get this going, that rate, that prime rate could go up again, because they're
Yes.
looking at the possibility of maybe, maybe not this year yet, but by next year, maybe increasing 2 more times.
Now, I believe there's been 2 increases at least this year already, and
Trust
the
me.
rate only from January 1st went up from 3.875 to 4%. So that's 1/8%. So in this whole calendar year, we're very fortunate that it didn't even go up even 1/4%.
That's why I'm thinking
So-
it will go up more.
It likely could, we just don't know, and they only set the rates at the beginning of the quarter. So they won't even know until probably the last week of December what that rate will be in the first quarter of next year.
And so, I mean, we're gearing this all towards that state, the USDA loan, but that prime rate that bothers me a little bit. And now, the state trust fund, I don't know if we could get the full $10+ million because we're already so far in debt with the state trust fund already. So I'm just, for people in the gallery to realize this isn't just, yeah, let's do this. It's all about financing, and the financing isn't as simple as it seems like. It's very complicated. It can be even more complicated. I see some other aldermen want to talk, so I'll move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Bouncing off of Alderman Sevenick's question about the bridge loan, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing from you is that the USDA would be working hand in hand with that private lender through the process, through the entire process. So from the moment we're ready to go out to bids and apply for that bridge loan, all the way until the USDA refinances that bridge.
I believe that the USDA loan will be working with the city throughout the whole process. They need to be rest assured that there is some interim financing in place to fund the project from the get-go, and that they understand it's going to be a very short term, and that once the project has been substantially completed, then the USDA loan would replace the temporary financing that is used.
Okay, do we have an idea, thank you for that clarification, do we have an idea of when, at what point we can lock in an interest rate with the USDA?
I thought it was at the, I believe when we first talked with them, I thought it was at the point that they approved the loan.
I thought it was application.
Oh, it was, well, I thought,
I thought it was when we applied for it.
okay. So I don't think the rate is at the time that the replacement of the temporary financing takes place. It's either at application time or at the time that we actually apply for it or that it's approved. It's going to be in that 3 to 4 month window, possibly on the front end, but I know that they said that even though I think if the interest rate does climb, that we're locked in once I think that we're at approval point. So that during this, if the temporary financing and the project does last the full 12 months as we expect it to, that if interest rates go up another 0.5%, we're already locked in at where we were at the beginning end. So we will know what our costs are going to be at the rate as what it was. It's just we may not know the size of the amount because the size of the loan might be lower than what we actually apply for initially.
Yes, they wouldn't want to lend us more money than they need to.
I
and-
don't believe so.
And we wouldn't want to borrow more than we need to.
No, we would not.
So the USDA will be partnering with the city at the same time. Any private lender involved will know that the USDA is involved in,
Right, I would expect that the local lender, or if we go to the state trust fund loan for something like this, that there would have to be a letter showing that the local lender, term is this, and that the USDA loan has signed on and approved a loan so that the local lender knows they are going to get paid in full once the project is substantially completed.
and I think that's an important component
Yes.
to this piece for the local lender to know
Rest
that
assured
they will be
knowing,
paid in
yes.
full at the end of
Yes.
that bridge loan. And what exactly are you looking for this evening from us?
We are looking for your blessing to move forward, to get answers to all of these questions, to move forward with exploring the financing options through the USDA, to move forward with the design of the one-phase Public Works facility, because it does dramatically change our design if we have to do it in 2 phases. The building would be completely a different location on the site, it'd be a completely different building. So we want some direction from council to go forward with this one-phase design. Obviously, we do have to work with you to bring forth not only a project that you are willing to approve, but also the financing that you are willing to approve. However, we felt that it was very important to get you on board so that we get this, kind of blessing to move forward with this before we spend, a substantial amount of staff and consultant time moving forward with this before you guys are, really involved.
Thank you for that clarification.
The other part of this is that now, this is the point where the USDA loan is encouraged us, once you have acknowledgement by your elected officials to proceed going down this road, we would now need to reach out to the RDA, because the RDA has not seen the project presentation yet. They have not seen, we've just hinted a little bit about financing that, where they're going to get involved in in the future here. So now, tomorrow afternoon, we have their meeting. We'll be bringing them up to speed on the same information that you have heard now twice, and that we would bring and let them know that they will be an active participant in this process of achieving the goal to provide the financing on behalf of the city, so that we can go out a little longer than the 20-year general obligation debt limit that's provided in state statute. But lease revenue bonds can go out as long as 40. But right now, we're only proposing roughly about 30 years.
So based on what happens here this evening, the next step, one of the next steps would be to go to the RDA to explain to them the situation and then
Yes.
get their blessing to continue to move forward. No commitments at
Correct.
this point, simply to move
Right,
forward.
there aren't any resolutions, there are no signed documents or any approvals needed at this time. It's just to allow staff to proceed to going down the road and filling out application forms to at least get the city enrolled in this program. And acknowledging that we'll be working with Attorney Captain on the documents needed between the agreement, lease revenue bond agreements that need to be between the city and the RDA in the coming months.
Thank you.
Alderman Sevenick.
Kind of a question for the city attorney then. Are we then, we're obviously not making that decision here, we're making a recommendation to the common council then for the phase 1 design. Okay. If there are no other questions, then I'll make a motion at this time to pursue the one-phase design for the new Public Works facility.
We have a motion and a second by Alderman Tom Grady. Is there any discussion? Alderman Taylor.
Oh, I still had my mic on.
Oh, Alderman Sevenick.
There's opportunities here that we
You
might
got
be
your mic on.
overlooking. I know we have time to do this yet, and I don't need an answer on it tonight, but certainly the day, this era that we live in, certainly FEMA, Homeland Security grants are probably available out there, and I'm wondering if there's, since all the departments are tied into the Public Works Department, I just wondered if DPW, Health, Fire, Police, there might be some opportunity out there to look into these situations for these possible grants to help offset some costs here. And John, again, looking at our Moody's rating, is there an impact on that rating by going out to this USDA?
There would be an impact on total debt of the city, but it would not be, since this is going through the USDA loan program and being issued by the redevelopment authority, which is considered lease revenue bonds. This is treated similar to like sewer revenue bonds, stormwater revenue bonds. It is not technically general obligation debt, so therefore it's not hitting the general obligation debt limit of the city. What the city needs, all municipalities and all counties need to do is they need to keep their general obligation debt limit below 5% of their equalized valuation of their community. And when we last looked at this, I believe we were like about 63%, and we were falling. We've been falling the last couple of years. So we were, and we will be, because this will not be considered general obligation debt. However, it is still being funded with monies being transferred between the RDA and the city's debt service fund to make the payment. But it's another option that in state statute does provide us to issue debt another way, and it doesn't count it as heavily on the debt limit of the general obligation debt, which would be directly on the taxpayers, even though there's going to be a lease revenue payment that will be equal to the debt service payment each year during the life of this debt issuance for the public works facility.
Does that slow our ability to raise our credit rating?
As long as we keep this $10 million project off of the general obligation debt limit, it's counted as total debt, which includes all kind of debt, including all the TIF district debt and everything. However, it won't make as much of an impact because it won't hit the general obligation debt limit. It still hits the total debt of the city, but it will not hit the general obligation debt limit of the city. So that at least in one way, and I've come from another community that has done the same thing, and we restructured it and called it another animal and had these other documents there, and we were able to get our bond rating improved significantly because our general obligation debt kept falling, and this is the plan here to do the same thing with this and just have the garage facility, public works facility, issued as a different tool.
Okay. Looking to the future here, 10, 20 years out, we're going to be inheriting the Racine Street Bridge, and that can come with tremendous cost. I know projections are 100 to 200,000 a year, but I'm talking a major breakdown of the structure in the future if that would happen. And we're looking to purchase the Lawson Canal, and these are big ticket items. And will we have the flexibility and the opportunity to make repairs or changes if that would come up?
Well, first off, the Lawson Canal project would be funded by a TIF district. So therefore, the TIF district's new valuation created in projects that are economic development projects that are created in there will be used to pay off the debt for those projects. So that wouldn't be on the burden of the city taxpayers. On the bridge itself, I don't know how to answer that unless Josh wants to chime in on that one.
I don't need an answer tonight, but certainly, I mean, it's a big issue, and there's tremendous costs that come. I look at the Green Bay, the the Rainitzky Bridge, and it's 10 years old. It's been broke about 33 times, and we're going to be on the ticket for that. And I've asked you before, you know, who you're going to call when this breaks, and we're talking tremendous amount of money, and I'm just wondering if that impact, how that impact would be on our finances.
Again, we, have to be cognizant that that stuff can happen, and, we would be searching for, there are DOT bridge, programs that would be 80/20 funded. That's how we would most likely fund any major bridge project. Minor stuff would be, most likely handled in-house, not in-house, but through a consultant. But the $100,000 to $200,000 a year should be a reasonable estimate, moving forward at least the first 10, 15 years, depending on obviously the condition of the bridge, but,
And I'm looking with this loan, I'm looking at 20 years out, 25 years out, with that impact.
And that's where we would have to be planning, 10 years out, from that time period as far as what projects may be necessary on that bridge. And that's where we would have the yearly inspections being done so that we do stay on top of the maintenance and we don't let it get further behind. That's the intention at this time.
Okay. And I will talk to all department heads about, we don't need to address it tonight, but I'm really interested in if there's any FEMA or Homeland Security options here available to the community with the facility of this size.
We know that we would be eligible for some size of a grant. We originally met with them, they said the maximum could be up to 15%. Then we've had other conversation with them that it was a minimal amount, like $50,000 or $150 or something. So it was a minimal amount, but it would be still something. So we will still pursue not only the loan route, but also the grant route of what we're eligible for, especially knowing where our household income level is pursuant to qualifying for a better, higher percentage rate for a grant than we would be if we were in a different community that was a little bit with a little higher income, average household income. One thing I did want to add, though, is with the restructuring that I handed out tonight and did include in the presentation, which the residents will be able to see out there, there is a lot of room here if disaster happens on something. Right now, I've got this restructure proposed as flat as possible with very, very small increases going forward in time, and assuming we do every single project in every single year. Obviously, that likely may or may not happen. So there is still a lot of potential there for it to be even flatter than what I'm proposing. But going forward, there would be room if something were to happen. We still would have plenty of capacity on the borrowing side and have these discussions on an annual basis. If a certain project that we totally don't know about in the next 5 years were to perk up, and that's not going to be funded by a TIF district or not be funded by a sewer utility or a stormwater utility project, we still would have room here to talk about those going forward. All I'm doing is trying to present a case that the affordability is here with restructuring what we already have issued in the past and with what could be in the next 5 years with issuing and doing different projects.
At what point do we lock in with the FDA loan?
The USDA loan?
Yes.
It would likely be done probably within the next 3 to 4 months once the applications are received and be approved. That would be at the point that rate would be locked in. And then we would pursue going forward with the interim financing and then to replace that at the point that the construction is substantially completed.
At a 30-year loan, what would the total on this be about with interest and everything, approximately? That's a pretty long sheet you got there.
I either want to wear my glasses or I don't want to wear my glasses, so I have to go with bigger paper. Sorry.
I'm with you on that.
It would be roughly, with the principal interest, we're looking at roughly $18.8 million over the course of the 30 years. And now, of course, it would be much greater if we wanted to go out the full 40 years, but we can make this work with a 30-year loan. Knowing with our existing normal CIP replacement schedule and typical capital borrowing that you have done historically in the last couple of years.
Okay. Thank you both.
Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Chair. What I wanted to address, we sort of talked about this a little bit in the CIP capital improvement budget, was why we would go with like this phase one and a totally new building and not go with piecing it together or just doing parts. And just so kind of this is for the public, is that when you start doing those kinds of things, you're actually increasing the cost of the project. Partly because you've got added utilities. You have, let's say you didn't move that paint building. Now you've got heating and cooling and electrical and plumbing and, you know, everything going on in that building plus the other building. Now you got two bills, you know, and this way if you put it all together, it operates under one bill and can be cost effective. And I think I gave maybe Alderman Rapello this example with the school district when they built Clovis Grove. A lot of people, they didn't want to see that building being torn down, but it was the best thing that could ever happen because they were losing so much heat. They were losing the cost to operate that facility. Basically, the new building got paid for in a 10-year period where this building was just bleeding the community, the old building. So I think the old Public Works would just kind of bleed the city also if we did it in all these different phases and different outbuildings and things like that. Build a decent building, brand new with all the latest, the newest types of technology like LED lighting and heating systems and things like that, and you save money over the long run. So that's why I'm in favor of doing it this way.
Alderman Kruger?
Yes.
We have a number of people from the Public Works staff, both current and past. Would it be possible, if any of them want to address the council at this time, would it be possible to get your unanimous consent to do so?
I will ask the body for unanimous consent to hear from the public.
Is there anyone that does want to speak first? I'll move for unanimous consent.
Put the timer on.
Yeah. Tim Jacobson, 732 Paris Street. Actually, it was 1993 when Mark and I started budgeting, at that time, $1 million, significant funds to address the problems out at the Public Works facility. But we just kept after it. I just got some notes that I jotted down this afternoon. It's been almost 2 decades that I have believed and have stated that mayors and councils, past and present, knew how and know how desperate the new Public Works facility is needed. The problem has always been how to pay for it. We all understand the situation that the steam plant put us in, and we've really worked hard to keep us above water through this phase of our community. But after all these years, since the Bray study, finally tonight you have being presented a plan to eliminate that problem. If you as political leaders truly expect to move forward with modern state-of-the-art projects and developments, you must first provide a modern state-of-the-art public works facility. After all, it is that facility that is going to be tasked with taking care of all of these other things. Which reminds me of a phrase that one doesn't buy a herd of cows before he has a barn to put them in. It's as simple as that. You need to have that facility done as your core, as your nucleus for the rest of the community to develop and become modern and state-of-the-art. And I think as a council, you can truly be proud of the department heads that put you in a position to reach what has long been considered unreachable. You really should. And you yourself, and you also have 2 of the finest field supervisors in place to make sure that this transition goes smoothly. I really admire Adam and Thad in the work they do out there, and couldn't be prouder to watch their taking care of the Public Works Department. I know I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This money's being spent on the taxpayers, for the taxpayers. It's not for somebody else's jobs or anything else. It's to make sure that their tax dollars are being spent efficiently and wisely through the maintenance and care of our community. And I look forward to your commitment to the city of Menasha by having a positive vote on this, moving forward on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Seeing none, is there any other discussion from anybody up on the committee? Seeing none, can we please have a roll?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Moving on to discussion and action item number 2, which is the payment to MMC Incorporated, Contract Unit 2018-2 for the new street construction and street reconstruction of various streets for $222,798.97, payment number 3. Director Radomski.
This payment is for construction of Ida, Alva, and First Street, as well as some of the streets out in the Phase 2 and 3 of the Pond subdivision. Alva, Ida, and First are all completed, and then we are working towards completion on the Phase 1 of the Pond subdivision. The contractor, I believe, has until the end of this month to finish that work.
Thank you. Can I have a motion? Alderman Langdon.
Thank you. I will make the motion for the payment to MCC Inc. for contract unit 2018-02 for the new street construction and street reconstruction for the various streets that Department Josh just said, in the amount of $222,798.97, and that will be payment number 3.
We have a motion and a second from Alderman Ted Grady. Is there any discussion? Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Chair Josh. On First Street, I noticed that, I guess we're going to be calling it now the Jimmy John location. I noticed that an apron was taken out and was not replaced. Is that planned to be replaced later on or during construction or what?
I will have to get back to you on that. I'm not 100% positive. I believe that if you're talking about the actual Jimmy John's apron, that would be replaced by Jimmy John's themselves.
When we took it out?
I
I
don't
think
know.
when we take it out, we have to replace it. Well, we can check on that
It
later.
was relocated, is what I've
Okay.
been told, so.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, could we take roll?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item number E is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Alderman Tom Grady. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.